Right, flying last week in the Carbon Cub UL. Of course, we're sitting here at Truckee. I'm in the back seat. What are you talking about with Kevin here while you get this thing started?
I was explaining to Kevin the start procedures on the UL. It's totally different with the Rotax engine because it has an electronic engine control. There's no mixture, there's no prop. You just have a throttle. And I was showing him at the beginning there how you check the different lanes, which are the electronic ignitions. And once both lights are out and it's ready to start, really all you have to do is turn the key. It's very similar to a car. There's nothing with a hot start or a cold start procedure as far as how much mixture or priming it, et cetera. It's just every single time. I mean, you saw we did, I don't know how many landings we did. But each time you just turn the key and the airplane starts in half a second every time. So it's really kind of neat from that standpoint that you don't have any of those hot start worries when you're out there in the backcountry. And we've all been there where you flood it or you just can't get it started and you're cranking on that battery, and this just doesn't have any of that. So
And you started
uh,
and stopped that engine at all times of day. I mean, we had some long landings, some short landings. Here we're east, what northeast corner of Lake Tahoe, I think, and we're climbing. I weigh 225 pounds, sitting in the back seat, and we took off at a Truckee. They got the big DA sign there, so did you have any concerns about high DA having a 225-pound passenger? We probably had 30 pounds of bags in the back too, with my
No, that's
backpack
kind
and
of the neat thing about the about this engine and being turbocharged is that we took off. I think we were over the water there, and we were climbing up towards Marlette Lake, going to land in Marlette Meadow. So we're going from, I think Tahoe is at just over 6,000 feet, and Marlette Meadow is up about 9,000 feet, about a
plus
thousand feet
plus
above the lake.
DA, right? And we were climbing
Yeah,
here, and you said, "Hey, watch me clear the
it was.
mountain." And I said, "There's no way you're going to clear that mountain." You're like, "I'll bet we get that high." And I was pretty shocked, especially sitting in the back, weighing as much as I do, and you were able to clear it, and you proved it here, right?
Well, we were probably climbing, density altitude as we got up to Marlette was over 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
But I think even down at the lake where we're at 8,000 feet density altitude as we start the climb and just pushing the throttle all the way to 100% and developing about 51 inches of manifold pressure, which is
Right, then
pretty
there's
insane.
Marlette Lake, and you figured that's Marlette Lake alone is at 7,800, and then what Marlette Meadow is about 9,000. Pretty steep
Yeah.
uphill, as you can see. We're pulling up to right here, and ordinarily this is a no go around spot. How do you feel about the UL Cub in this spot?
I don't have the video, but I did one practice go around. Normally, when you're at the
Right.
bottom of Marlette Meadow, about to land there, depending on the density altitude, it's kind of a no go around spot once you get down low, just because of that rising terrain. And this airplane, total non-event. I mean, I was climbing well over 1,000 feet per minute at 10,000 feet density altitude, and it just has so much power. It's complete game changer in the backcountry. All of these airplanes, all of the Carbon Cubs, especially the lighter SSs, but a Kit Fox or a Highlander, a Legend Cub, all of these airplanes are pretty capable. This airplane is just a step above because of that turbocharged engine and being able to develop. I remember ferrying it down to Reno and I was climbing out of 10,000 feet, and you look down at 100% and you have 51 inches of manifold pressure, and I climbed directly up to 15,500 feet. And the amazing thing, my true airspeed was 150, and I was burning just over 8 gallons per hour,
That's
which is really pretty
that's kind
impressive.
of
I mean,
unheard
it's
of in a backcountry airplane. Now, when you were talking about the no go around there, um, ordinarily that's a no go around single pilot, and you weigh what 160 pounds ish, but with
159.
right, so even with me in the back, you would have been able to make that climb and that left hand turn, and probably not have been overly concerned about it. Right? Obviously, you still want to make that approach as though it's a no go round, but you wouldn't think about it in the UL Cub as deeply as you would as any of the other backcountry airplanes that are available.
No, and that was, like right here, we're over Stampede Reservoir there. We're catching up to Kevin twin, and the neat thing with this, there were times where, the other SS Cubs were indicating 85 to 90, and I at 100% power, I was accelerating through 125 up to 130 indicated, being able to catch them. But
Yeah.
the islands down there to the left, there's a couple of islands there that we landed on, and it's only about 300 feet usable of landing space, and pretty easy most of the time for all of these backcountry airplanes, or a lot of them.
We landed
Um,
there early, so nearly full fuel. Me in the back, 225, 30 pounds of baggage, 159 pounds up front, and you weren't concerned about it at all.
non-event getting off the island. We took off.
Well, not event
We
for a
went.
pilot with a bunch of skill, right? So all of this stuff we're doing is not just willy nilly. I watched a YouTube video and I'm going to go do what Bruce is doing. Obviously, there's a lot of skill behind it, but with a skilled pilot, these are the things you're able to do, right?
Well, it's, the airplane was outperforming all of the other Cubs just because of that power. So really the safety margin that you have in the backcountry spots, being able to, there's places that I've landed before, and you're a little bit concerned about getting back out of there. And with this one, if you can land on it, you can take off. It just really leaps off the ground. The start procedures are easy, stress-free backcountry flying, even with high density altitude. I mean,
Right.
for most airplanes landing or just flying around in a Cub at 10,000 feet density altitude is one thing, but to actually do off-airport landings is totally different ball game. So I was pretty impressed. I had the airplane all week. We did a bunch of flying on that Tuesday and Wednesday, and then obviously we had a great time flying the Canadian snowbirds on Thursday and taking those guys out. And
And they were all
I had
really
different.
impressed. I mean, they got out of
Loved
this
it.
airplane too, and were just blown away at the differences. And Kevin's airplane out there in front of you is incredibly capable. 35-inch bush wheels. He flies the wheels off of that thing. But like you said, when you land that airplane, and maybe it's a high DA day, you weren't overly concerned about getting out of spots where you would have been before.
Not at all. It's just super easy to get off the ground. And like I said, the margin, I think the safety margin is probably the biggest issue, because I've taken Carbon Cub FX3 and all of those same spots. Uh, and this was totally different. It was just amazing to have, that kind of performance. And I know we ended up having that barbecue at Trent Palmer's house. And I
Yeah, I've
remember
got the I've got
stopping.
the pictures cycling through here now, and you mentioned Trent Palmer's place, which is an interesting uphill short landing. And on the video we've got up here now, what can you say about this takeoff?
Yeah, normally you would take off downhill. The winds were gusting a little bit. I think by the time I took off, by the time I taxied down, the winds had calmed down a little bit. But normally you would take off to the east, downhill. But I wanted
It
to
was 10
with
or
you and
15 at the time.
yep. But to be able to taxi all the way down to the bottom, and turn around and take off uphill, um, get off the ground in 100 feet with you in the back and still have this monster climb.
Right,
For me, the safety factor there, I think I took off, when I looked at it, I did another demo with, remember I had Ryan in the back,
right.
and I took off
Ryan's
up.
probably 170, 180 pounds, somewhere in there.
Yeah, similar to
Apologies
me.
if
And
I'm wrong on that, Ryan, but somewhere in that ballpark,
but
175, let's just say.
But we took off uphill, and I looked, my ground speed when I lifted off was 19 miles an hour. When I did it the other way, taking off downhill, my ground speed was 54 miles an hour. So when you look at taking off, even though downhill is normally preferred, if you have that big of a tailwind, that first 20, 30 plus miles an hour of ground speed, you don't
Right,
have the same directional control just because of that tailwind. So to be able to, from a safety standpoint, take off into the wind uphill, lifting off with an under, a less than 20 mile an hour ground speed from a safety standpoint was just huge. I mean, it's super, super impressive.
right.
We went north, up to north of High Sierra, north of Dead Cow there, and did a bunch of landings on Skate Ramp, which is a really, really neat spot.
Yeah, I'll bring up the
That
photo
same
here so people can see it.
Yeah, same thing, being able to fly around in those high density altitude areas. Dead cow's a little bit lower, 4,000, but it was warmer that day. We
Late
were,
late
clo-
afternoon, it was warm and
yeah,
windy.
close to 90 degrees, lots of wind.
Right.
And once again, just the safety factor of that huge margin of being able to get in and out of all of these spots. I know I went and landed over at Game Refuge, which is can get a little squirrely down in
It's a,
that valley.
yeah.
If you're turning as you're on downwind base and final, to land in that spot. And in this airplane, first time landing there, just complete non-event. So it's I asked if I could borrow the airplane just to give it a go. Cub Crafters didn't ask me to do anything for them, but I felt like I wanted to share the performance on this airplane. Ben Hodges and Rick Boschart, they the two Cub sales reps for the West Coast. That was their airplane that they let me use for the week. And I told them I at least wanted to put some information out about the performance just so people could have an idea. I think, there's obviously some things in
Yeah, I
every
already
airplane
shot
that
Rick a
you.
message. I mean,
Yep.
I was that impressed with that airplane. I've got that 172 and the RV-14, and willing to put those up for sale to buy this airplane. It was the most impressive single engine piston I've been in the last decade. There's a lot of great airplanes out there, but I haven't been in them all, right? But I was exceptionally blown away sitting in the back seat, just having you
No,
fly me around and show me what the airplane could do. I was absolutely blown away. And everybody you talk to about this airplane that has flown it, everybody nobody really talks. They just kind of shake their head like, I've never done anything like it before. Is that
I
your
think I had Marc Andre, Snowbird number 8 in
right?
the back of the airplane on one of the flights, and he was being really quiet. And I said, "Hey, is everything good?" And he just kind of laughed and he said, "I'm just enjoying this. This is just amazing. I can't believe you guys
Yeah,
can take off in this." And I know we've had this conversation with multiple people in the back, where they look at spots and say, "You guys are going to land on that," and they're just
and
not used
where?
to the backcountry flying. So to be
Right.
able to do it with people that have never done it and have that huge safety margin. I mean, I've flown, I'm sure, 80 plus different Cubs, and this one is
And what,
top of the
several
list.
thousand hours probably in Cubs by now?
Yeah, and hands down the best performing Cub that I've ever been in.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. I have to say. I mean, we had a great time during the week.
Yeah.
Great time flying around with everybody. We had 10 airplanes on that Thursday with the team, and it was kind of neat to just go out there and show everybody what these airplanes do. But especially the Carbon Cub UL. So big shout out to Cub Crafters for
Yeah.
doing such a great job. The other thing, and
And
one thing
lots
that
of
I mentioned
options,
that
right? Like that could have had 44-gallon tanks. It could have had a belly pod. Could have had bigger tires. Whatever. So there's lots of options when you build that thing out.
there are some options, but the one thing that I forgot to mention about, from a performance standpoint, the FX3, we didn't really have the temperature issues. It's a little easier in the SSs, with the 340, if you're up there high RPM trying to climb on a hot day, it's really easy to get those temperatures up high. With this airplane, you don't even pay attention to it because the
So it's
engine
full
controller
FADEC.
just it
And it's
takes care
single
of
lever,
everything.
so there's no prop, there's no mixture.
Just takes care of everything. I had no high temperatures at all, even those 10,000 foot density altitude takeoffs. I'd look down and the temps were just no, just everything was in the green constantly, but it really took away, you didn't have to pay attention to it. You just got to fly and enjoy it and have, that's from a situational awareness standpoint. It was really, really nice. So
Right.
big
And
big fan, love the airplane, and can't wait to get it back out there and go do some more flying. So
yeah,
it was a blast having you out there. I'm glad you
yeah,
came along and you got to see the performance, and
yeah.
hope I didn't scare you too much.
No, it
Uh,
sold me on the idea about in the first
nice.
5 minutes. But all right, well, thanks for sitting down for a little bit to talk about this thing, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cool, Roger. Thanks. Have a good one.
Peace. See ya.
See ya.